It was one of the most bittersweet weekends of all time, but we made it through both Avengers Endgame and Game of Thrones with the Battle of Winterfell. It's a little surprising which one of those hurt more than the other, but we're going full spoilers ahead as we dive into both of them. I'm Brandon Davis. You are watching Comic Book Now. Well, hello, Comic Book Nation. Welcome to the post-Endgame portion of your life. We've waited for it. It's here.
This is
Chris
probably
Killian
one of the
here.
most exciting.
Can I introduce you?
Yeah,
Can
I guess. I'm so excited
I just
to talk.
want people to know who
I'm
you
sorry.
are.
I'm sorry. They know. They know. You guys know.
Chris Killian's here, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Brandon Davis. Please call me BD. I didn't mean to interrupt you, Chris. I just want to make sure that beautiful people know who this
Yesterday
beautiful man is.
was heavy. I watched Endgame and Game of Thrones back to back.
Why would you hurt yourself like that?
I was just saving it all for one day. I just wanted to get it away. Are my eyes still
But
swollen?
here's the thing. It's almost surprising. Guys, we are going full spoilers ahead. It's almost surprising that Endgame was the one that hurt more than Game of Thrones, The Battle of Winterfell.
Why is that surprising?
Because Game of Thrones historically has hurt me much more than Marvel has.
Yeah, but Marvel's been saving this up for a long time. So
Game of Thrones does it every week and it still hurts.
that's what I'm saying, is that you kind of know, like, you know Game of Thrones is going to hurt you. But Marvel, that's not, that you're expecting all that to get reverted back to where it doesn't count. So
I'm seeing a lot of comments already debating Endgame and Infinity War. People are saying Infinity War was better. I don't know. It's so tough. They're two such different movies.
they're very, to me, it reminded me very much of like Kill Bill, where it's like the first half is very action heavy, and then the second half we kind of slow down a bit and try to, get to the real meat of the story.
Yeah.
But you can't have one without the other.
I think Infinity War was a little bit more relentless in its pacing and narrative. I thought Endgame was 3 hours long. The first 45 minutes felt a little bit less, like there wasn't much of a pace to the first 45 minutes. It was all jumping around and establishing where everybody is, whereas Infinity War, it just jumped in and we knew where it was. But a lot of Endgame got very convoluted. A lot of criticisms here. Wow, I'm surprised. Endgame is better than Infinity War. It had weight to it, says Reese Williams. I'm on the Endgame train. I think Endgame had emotional
I want
depth
to, I want to watch
than
it some
Infinity
more.
War did. I thought Endgame and especially as a Marvel fan, it's just so rewarding. It did so many things. It's like the Russo brothers had a box of a checklist, and they just went through and checked boxes of things fans wanted to see. The A-Force, the all-women shot, the Peggy and Cap ending up together. We're going to talk about all of that. And Pepper and Tony fighting back-to-back. It was just so many. And then going to each of the movies that we loved before it and Thor the Dark World.
You know what I was
really
most
cool.
impressed by? Is how beautiful Thor is even when he's got a huge gut.
That was my biggest
I was
criticism
like,
of the
what?
movie.
Wow.
I definitely, that was my biggest criticism. I thought the Fat Thor stuff ran us. Anyway, the big weekend. Let me get to the script. I have a script I have to follow. Let's jump into this. The big topic of the weekend, the year, the generation, the lifetime. Avengers Endgame. The movie not only broke records this weekend, it shattered them. More than $1.2 billion at the worldwide box office. More than $350 million of that in the United States alone. This is insane. The movie theaters were packed and people were going crazy. It was so much fun to watch it. And I don't think I'm crazy to say that another thing this movie shattered is our expectations. Thousands of theories and predictions and a super high bar going in, and Endgame found ways to surprise us and raise that bar. I see the debate is already raging in the comment section, so this is going to be fun. For me, I think Endgame, this could be because it's recent, but I enjoyed it more than any other Marvel movie.
Yeah.
And that not to say it's the best, but I had the best time watching this. I felt like it was made for people like me who watched every Marvel movie more than once. You watch them the day they come out, you watch them again while they're in theaters, and then you watch them again on Blu-ray. And I've done that with every single Marvel movie, except Captain Marvel because it's still in theaters, and it's not my favorite. But
yeah,
also,
I don't have to watch Captain Marvel again.
Yeah, but I did watch it. I watched it 3 times. What am I saying? I've watched Captain Marvel 3 times. But it revisited Thor: The Dark World, the Avengers, it referenced the Winter Soldier in that elevator fight scene. It even little moments like, and you'll see this. We have an Easter egg video that's going to play in a few minutes here, like the Wasp calling Captain America Cap and then looking at Scott Lang and giving like a smug little grin because she once made fun of him for doing the same thing. You only understood that smirk if you watched and really remembered Ant-Man and the Wasp. I love it. I think the movie is a 10 out of 10.
Absolutely.
I don't think you could have made the movie better. There was no way to make this movie better.
The amount of love that went into this movie as a conclusion to the whole Infinity Saga is astounding and something that we've never seen on this scale before whatsoever.
Yeah.
So the amount, like you said, I think it was interesting because like my girlfriend went with me to watch the movie and she hasn't seen all the other movies before. And the fact that she still liked the movie without understanding all of the references, like she hadn't seen Thor: The Dark World, so she didn't know, all that. But the fact that it still made sense to her on that level, but was made really for true Marvel fans who'd seen everything before, that's a huge feat that you can't really, you can't not take your hats and,
And I think some of it was happy little accidents. I think that they kind of capitalized on things that they looked back on and they were like, oh, had we planned this, had we known we were doing this 10 years ago, we could have had a seat in Iron Man 2 or in the Avengers. Yeah. But there was no way they knew they were going to get to this. And for not having planned it, they really capitalized on every opportunity to use the time travel, to go back to these movies and make it work. MVP of the movie. Which character or characters are your MVP of the movie?
I got 2.
I want you guys to play along in the comment section as well.
There's 2 MVPs for me. First off, Ant-Man. I mean, the whole thing wouldn't have been possible.
He was great.
Without Ant-Man. It was kind of impressive that he was such I don't know, an instigator of all this. I don't know. I mean, it just wouldn't have happened without Ant-Man's, going down into the quantum realm or whatever. But the other one for me is Captain America picking up Thor's hammer.
Oh, I saw a comment earlier. Somebody was loving that. They said they loved it when Christus Goini said she loved it when Cap picks up the hammer and Thor's like, I knew it. That was a great moment. For me, also speaking of Ant-Man, though, Paul Rudd in that scene where he meets Cassie, I thought that was great.
Yeah.
Like when he's like, you got so big, and it was very much like I think this movie required more performing, more acting from its cast than most of the previous movies.
Well, I also think that scene was important because it really laid down the fact that it had been 5 years, and mostly everybody, their loved ones had just disappeared.
Yep.
That seemed to be the main thing going throughout. Everybody just disappeared. So it was nice to see that somebody didn't disappear, and that you could instead kind of kick into gear like, oh, 5 years has really passed.
My MVP, I think it's Hawkeye. I think it was really cool to see him finally get a good story. Maybe that's why I think he's MVP, because he finally had a great story.
He turned straight into Batman.
Dude, when he was slicing the Outriders and when he was coming up the tunnel and everything, he and carrying the gauntlet and just doing everything that had to be done. Without Hawkeye, this wouldn't get done. And also the rat.
Am I the only one?
The rat that let Scott Lang out of the quantum realm. If we don't have that rat press the buttons to get Scott Lang out of the quantum realm, we're still just sitting there with half of the population gone.
That's true.
So,
was I the only one too that thought when Ronan was in Japan, did it make you think of Logan?
Yeah.
I can't remember that Japanese actor's name.
Oh, that's not the same guy.
He's in Logan. And
no, he's in the Wolverine.
He's in the Wolverine.
Yeah,
not Logan,
he was on Lost as well.
Yeah, and so I was like, oh man, it'd be great if Wolverine just popped up in this right now.
Bob, see you again. No, and I think also, so the MVPs we've picked: Hawkeye, Ant-Man, and
then how can you not say Iron Man too?
That
that
Iron Man
kind of goes without saying.
Line. We're going to talk about Iron Man in full detail. I'm saving that for last because I sobbed when Iron Man died. But
that's it.
It was.
That's all you did was sob.
Oof, cried, lip quiver, and everything. But I want to talk, and I'm not seeing very many submissions for MVP. Karen Gillan killed it. Nebula, people are digging Nebula. Iconic lines. I want to shout out a few of my favorite lines from the movie that I think are just going to stick with us for a long time. Love You 3000. That's just obviously the one that's the hold the door of Avengers Endgame. I'm gonna get you. Then when you're dealing with Tony Stark dying and it's still emotional, and then Happy Hogan says to Morgan H. Stark, "You hungry?" She says, "I want a cheeseburger." And he's like, "I'm gonna get you all the cheese. Your dad loved cheeseburgers. I'm gonna get you all the cheeseburgers you want. I'm gonna have a cheeseburger for lunch today, just because of that moment." But also, if you think about the depth of that line, it goes back to the first Iron Man. The first thing he wanted when he came home from being trapped in the Middle East and building a suit with a box of scraps in a cave.
It's a deep cut.
He wanted a cheeseburger. That was the first thing he wanted. He got Burger King. Great product placement back then. Also, On Your Left was great. Great. And that's just rewarding the fans who loved it, because as soon as you hear On Your Left, you remember the Winter Soldier, the opening scenes of the Winter Soldier, when he's running past Sam Wilson. And, of course, the last line from the first Iron Man movie is his last line, besides "Hey, Pep," he says, "I am Iron Man."
My two favorite lines were both from Captain America. Obviously, hearing him say "Avengers Assemble" was like a huge cheering moment.
We've been waiting so long.
The fact that they've gone 10 years and hadn't said it yet
was worth it.
It was totally worth it. It was awesome. And then I loved when Captain America was fighting Captain America, and he's like, "I can do this all day," and Cap is all, "I know."
America's ass. I'm reading the comments. Andy Culla. I can't read your comment out loud, Andy Culla, because I don't know. We're family friendly, is what they tell me, so I can't use your word. But Morgan Stark's repeating what her dad said.
Oh yeah.
A certain word that you can't say. Hail Hydra was great. The Duncan Broom pointed out. Hail Hydra was great. When Cap got in that elevator, I brought my friend to see this movie, and she hadn't watched all of the Marvel movies. She watched most of them, and I sent her a list, and I was like, "You gotta watch these, and these," but I hadn't seen Endgame yet, and I wasn't sure if she saw Winter Soldier, and I was like, "Oh my God!" So in Winter Soldier, this turns into like an epic fight scene. It's probably gonna happen again. And then he says, "Hail Hydra." The theater goes nuts, and like she's sitting there like. And I'm like, "Oh my God, that's genius!"
And I was gonna say, what a fantastic callback to Winter Soldier without actually going to the Winter Soldier timeline.
Right.
Also, to work that in to the original Avengers plot, it was great.
I love that. Man, I'm loving seeing the people who are gonna hate Endgame no matter what, just hating on it in the comment section.
Oh, dude, I got so much hate on Twitter
funny.
when I said that it should be 100.
It's so funny.
Last week I got
people
destroyed.
just want to cry about it and have their little sad voice be heard because they were gonna hate the movie no matter what, and that's fine. Like if you gave the movie a fair shot, you didn't like it, like cool. I don't care.
It's all good.
But there's people who were just gonna go in, and a lot of them. I don't even want to start a fire.
Yeah.
But one death before we talk about Iron Man was Black Widow, and I felt like this should have been more emotional. So I guess we'll start criticizing a little bit here. When Black Widow jumped off the cliff on Vormir to get the Soul Stone, I didn't feel that much of an emotional impact. And I think maybe that's because I'm sitting here thinking the whole purpose of this movie is to bring people back to life. So I guess it didn't process for me in that moment that she really is dead permanently. Right. I think that I was like, you know what, by the end of the movie, she'll be back. It's Black Widow, it's Marvel. They always bring people back. But then she never came back. Yeah. And I felt like that kind of undercut her death. But it was a heroic death. It was about as good a death as you could ask for, especially a character like that who had no family, found it with the Avengers, and sacrificed herself to help them save everyone else.
Right.
So it works.
She was essentially, for a long time, a character that couldn't be trusted. She kind of came full circle that way by giving her life for the Avengers, especially after that 5-year arc of where she's like the only one that's kind of keeping the Avengers together. Which we didn't get to see a whole lot of it, but it's enough there that you kind of get a sense of where her responsibilities lie.
David Warren
snap.
Says they cheated Black Widow. Whew. I don't know. I thought it was a really good death. I don't think it was cheating.
But I'm with you. I didn't feel like...
But I didn't get that emotional.
No, I
would have
didn't
expected
either.
to. I thought Hawkeye got a great story.
Well,
Black Widow got a great story. It was good to see the roles beefed up in this movie. Mm-hmm. This was really a tribute to the original Avengers, which was great.
Right.
But I just thought I would feel more when Black Widow died. But I think it was just because I expected her to come back.
Yeah.
And I was wrong. Do we even want to try to touch how time travel works?
Oh, God.
It seems so simple, but then it's not. So it's, I think, the closest comparison, and I saw Stephen McFeely, the writer of this movie, at the after party of the premiere on last Monday, a week ago. And I went up to him and I was like, so you guys kind of did a little bit of Back to the Future and like Lost? And he was like, oh, no, we did not do Back to the Future. They wanted it to be clear, they did not.
Well, they spent so much.
They established in the movie they did not want to do it. But so then I was trying to process it, and I think the closest comparison is Lost. And I don't know if you're familiar with Lost, but in Lost, the rules are whatever happened in the past already happened. You can't change it. And what you do there won't change the future. It'll change your future for you, but there won't be an alternate timeline. There's no way to change what happened in the past. But in this one, you can change, but it still doesn't affect the future. So whatever you do in the past might create an alternate timeline, alternate reality, but it also, like, your present exists. And that was displayed when Nebula killed past Nebula and present Nebula didn't disappear. Thanos from 2014 never went on to get the stones and do the snap in the first place.
Right.
But it already happened for the present, so you couldn't change that.
Well, and so that's kind of what the sorcerer, what's her name?
Ancient one.
Yeah, the ancient one. I don't know why I said the sorcerer, but that's kind of what she talks about. You know, if she gives this stone up, it's gonna kind of create an alternate timeline for her reality. And she's like, your reality might work out just fine, but the one that I'm in isn't gonna go so well. I think it's kind of impossible to do what they're talking about without branching off into alternate timelines. We got Loki disappearing with the Tesseract. I mean, where'd he go? You know, Steve didn't have a Tesseract to take back to that time period. He had to take it back to the 1970s. And then you also wonder about Steve showing up at the end. To me, that was the only one that really kind of threw me off, because it was nice to see Steve get that moment, but then you also realize that there's a couple of things that might be wrong with that scenario.
Yeah, that is the tricky part, because he went back, and in the Winter Soldier, I think it was, or it might have been Civil War, Steve reunites with very old Peggy, and she tells him she got married.
Right.
But before I saw Endgame, my instinct when watching that scene back then was that maybe somehow he went back in time and married her. And that was just like a reaction, not knowing what was going to happen in Infinity War, not knowing for sure that time travel would become a factor. I just thought maybe this is what happened all along, and he did go marry her, and he's the guy she married, and she's kind of old, her mind's not working, she can't even remember that she's seeing him, and that maybe that was all along the story.
But in that sense, Steve Rogers clearly outlived her, so why isn't old Steve Rogers by her bedside while she's dying? You know what I mean? So that doesn't necessarily map out either.
Maybe he knew that if he saw himself, he would have changed the timeline.
But it doesn't change the timeline because we got the two nebulas.
This is giving me a headache. It's giving me such a headache.
Also, where did Cap get the shield at the end? His shield's broken. That means he had to steal a shield from somewhere else. Now, original Captain America doesn't have a shield. He's probably dead, or just wandering around wondering where he left the shield.
I'll tell you when we're going to get these answers. I'm going to plug this shamelessly. On May 6th, 2019, we're going to interview director Joe Russo right here on Comicbook.com. It'll be a live show. And before we move on, let's talk about Iron Man's death.
Okay.
And I will talk about all that in a minute. But Iron Man dying was the heaviest part of the movie for me. I just had ugly tears raining down my face. Onions everywhere being cut. I didn't expect to be that emotionally moved by Iron Man dying. And I think it was because the whole Iron family was around him, and they gave him a daughter. Pepper's there, and when she says, "We're gonna be
even
okay,"
the kid from Iron Man 3 is there.
But in the scene where he's actually dying,
right,
you have Spider-Man and the Iron Spider. You have Pepper Potts in the rescue armor, and you have War Machine, Rhodey, his best friend, in the whatever that armor was, wherever he got it from, that awesome Iron Patriot War Machine hybrid. And Tony's just knows he's dying. They all know he's dying, and Pepper comes in, tells him you can rest now, and I was just whoa.
Yeah,
that was it for me. I had
one lone tear come out my right eye. Just boop.
Oh my God.
That was it. It wasn't
all to put her hand on my cheek. I was
waterworks.
like, "Are you okay?"
Yeah.
I was like,
It was tough, and I kind of took it too as though because he's like the original founder of the MCU, basically the fact that she was surrounded by all these other heroes and was like, you can rest now, everything's safe. It's kind of like I felt like it was almost talking to Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah.
It was like you
built this thing.
You built it.
Thank you.
We're done. And or we're not done. There's a lot to go, but you're done.
Yeah,
you can rest.
It just breaks my heart to know that we won't be seeing Iron Man again. And honestly, though, I hope we don't now. I feel as if we bring him back, we'll be cheating this incredible.
The only way that I want to see him come back
moment
is if he takes Stan Lee's place as the cameo king.
But you need to space that out for 10 years from now.
I mean, maybe,
that can't be in every movie from now on. That would be so confusing. He's too known as Iron Man.
Oh, no.
Imagine if you're watching Captain Marvel go through space and she zips by and Tony Stark's like, oh, well, look at her go. It would be like, wait, what? What?
Right. No, I get the confusion,
yeah.
but I still would probably be okay with
All
it.
right, we got to move on, guys. We spend a lot of time. If you have questions, we can address those too. I could talk about Avengers Endgame all day. We could talk about it here on Comic Book Now, or you can send us your questions on Twitter at Chris Killian and at Brandon Davis BD, and use hashtag Comic Book Now anytime during the week. We do have a lot of questions, and we're going to do our best to get them all answered. Here's how: on May 6th at 6 p.m. Pacific time, right here on Comicbook.com, we will be live with Avengers Endgame co-director Joe Russo, breaking down the film and getting all of the inside scoop from the man behind not only Endgame, but also Winter Soldier, Civil War, and Infinity War. I'm very much looking forward to that 1 week from today. That means this Comic Book Now show will not happen at its regularly scheduled time. We will be 6 p.m. Pacific time. You East Coasters got to stay up a little bit longer, but I promise I will do my best to make it worth it. I hope you will join us live. For now, let's take a look at all of the Easter eggs we were able to catch in Avengers Endgame. Check this out. Avengers Endgame has made its way to theaters loaded with payoff and Easter eggs for almost all 21 MCU movies before it, and we're going to run through all of them. BD here, and let me just say, major spoilers ahead. If you haven't seen Avengers Endgame, this is not the video for you. If you have, let's continue and run through the dozens of eggs which the Russo brothers cooked up, which range from ant-sized details like Hope Van Dyne calling Captain America Cap after making fun of Scott Lang for doing just that in Ant-Man and the Wasp, or as massive as a potential reference to Namor, aka Marvel's Aquaman. Let's start there. In a meeting between the remaining heroes, Okoye acknowledges that there was an earthquake underwater in the Atlantic Ocean. This isn't the first time Wakanda and the Atlantic Ocean have come up in the MCU. Iron Man 2 showed some blips on the map, prompting speculation about both of them, but this underwater earthquake seems to be the second major tease of Namor and his Atlantean empire. Trying to keep this in chronological order, we'll start at the beginning, where Tony Stark sent a message to Pepper Potts. His call out of not posting his message on social media might be a callback to his introductory scene in the first Iron Man movie, where he tells a soldier not to post their photo on his MySpace page. After the 5-year time jump, director Joe Russo makes a cameo, playing the first openly gay character in the MCU during a therapy session with Captain America. And he also brought a couple of community cast members into the mix again, with Ken Jeong making a cameo as a security guard and Yvette Nicole Brown being an employee at Camp Lehigh. Thor had been spending his time at New Asgard, which is literally the new Asgard after the original was destroyed in Ragnarok. This town was formerly known as Townsburg, the site of Odin's army versus the Frost Giants from the first Thor, and the same place where the Red Skull hunted the Tesseract in Captain America: The First Avenger. In New Asgard, we see Korg wearing a pineapple romper, the same one which Ragnarok director and Korg actor Taika Waititi has made famous. When Scott Lang enters the movie, he does it in a storage space labeled number 616, a reference to the 616 universe from Marvel Comics, which is where the main stories take place. Time travel made for a lot of Easter eggs and references. For example, Tony heads to 2012 and climbs Stark Tower, eventually jumping off of it almost in the exact same way as he did in the first Avengers movie, free falling as his suit comes together. Meanwhile, Captain America enters an elevator with all the same Hydra agents acting like S.H.I.E.L.D. guys as he did in the epic scene from the Winter Soldier. This time around, he slips a Hail Hydra in instead of fighting them, nodding to Steve Rogers' Captain America #1, where Cap used the same phrase. In 2013, Thor is back in Thor: The Dark World, where he gets some more time with his mother Frigga just before she is killed by the Dark Elves. In 2014, Nebula and War Machine encounter the opening scene from the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie, where Peter Quill is dancing to the sound of Come and Get Your Love. Going further back in time to April 4th, 1970, the original Ant-Man helmet is seen in Hank Pym's lab, along with a de-aged Michael Douglas, and Captain America's suit is labeled Roscoe, paying homage to Roscoe Simmons, a character who was once Captain America in the books. Plus, the Jarvis fans who watched Agent Carter Got to Know made an appearance, and TV shows are finally validated on the big screen. That 70s scene opened with Stan Lee's cameo, including a bumper sticker labeled Enough Said, which is how Stan would often end his soapbox messages, which always encouraged people to be better versions of themselves. Before Black Widow voluntarily took the leap Gamora was forced to in Infinity War, the Red Skull, as portrayed by The Walking Dead's Ross Marquand in the Avengers movies rather than the original actor Hugo Weaving, tells her that her father's name is Ivan. This is likely a reference to the comic character Ivan Petrovich, a Russian man who adopts Natasha after rescuing her from a burning building. Once the fighting begins, Thanos breaks Captain America's shield just as he did in the Infinity Gauntlet comics and as predicted in Tony's dream sequence from Avengers Age of Ultron. He then goes on to wield Thor's hammer as he did in Thor number 390, fulfilling another Age of Ultron moment where Cap made the hammer flinch when he tried to pick it up. Just as the vanished Avengers start to show up, Sam Wilson tells Steve on your left, as Steve did to Sam when passing him while running around DC in the Winter Soldier. And finally, the dialogue fans have been waiting for, Captain America tells all of the Marvel heroes, Avengers assemble, which is the key comic book phrase from countless major issues. When the fighting wraps up, Iron Man is dead, but he has a hologram of himself, which could end up being an AI, or in essence, of Tony Stark in the future. The comic saw an AI version of Tony Stark coaching Riri Williams as she became Ironheart. The moment where Happy Hogan tells Tony's daughter Morgan that he'll get her all the cheeseburgers she wants goes back to Tony's return home in the first Iron Man movie, where all he wanted was a cheeseburger. Thor's next journey appears to be with the Guardians of the Galaxy. He outright dropped a comic book title when he called the group the Asgardians of the Galaxy, but for now the next movie is still called Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. And finally, there is Steve and Bucky's last words to each other. Steve tells his best friend, "Don't do anything stupid until I get back," to which Bucky responds, "How can I? You're taking all the stupid with you." This is the reverse of their exchange in Captain America: The First Avenger. Then there are the comic tributes, like Captain Marvel's new haircut being consistent with that of the modern comics, Hawkeye becoming the Ronin character first introduced in New Avengers number 11, the Hulk being smart as he first appeared to be in Hulk number 377, Sam Wilson becoming the Falcon as he first did in Captain America number 25 before getting a comic series under the all-new Captain America title, the Hulk holding up an insane amount of weight to save other heroes as he did on the cover of Secret Wars number 4, and the A-Force launching with an all-female frame. What Easter eggs and references did you catch in Avengers Endgame? Share them in the comments section or send them my way on social media at Brandon Davis BD, and be sure to stay tuned to Comicbook.com/Marvel for more exclusive MCU content. Before we move on to talk about Game of Thrones, I wanted to take a look at just an awesome, amazing video that Chris Pratt took on the set of Endgame. It's just unbelievable. So many cast members on the set at the same time for that final fight sequence in what had to be a very illegal video.
Establishing for the rest of the scene is good too, because all that dialogue from over there is not supposed to anybody. Establishing discussion over comms is good now. This part, Joe, probably get wrong.
But that's another thing.
Oh, it's a video. Should we try this?
Yeah.
Get through it?
Why don't you, everybody go their starting position, right?
I'm pretty sure I'm the most famous person here. This is a really illegal video.
Big trouble.
Oh, big time. I'm gonna bring.
Oh, that's so cool. Let's move on to Game of Thrones. Last night's episode was breathtaking from the parts you could actually see. The Battle of Winterfell has come and gone, and, well, it was pretty surprising the characters we actually like, for the most part, survived when the Night King blew a 28-3 lead. Sports reference, I don't know if people here get that.
I didn't get that.
No, I didn't think you would.
No.
But, you know, first of all, let's talk about, we have a few photos here that I want to address. We are talking spoilers for Game of Thrones, just like we did Avengers Endgame. Jorah died for Dany, which this guy just got
Friend
back.
zoned for life, man.
You live in the friend zone, you die in the friend zone, and I don't understand it. This was probably the saddest death for me of the episode.
Probably second saddest for me.
So
but you know,
this had to be number one. I thought this was the most surprising, I think, of all of them.
I felt bad. Theon, it was pretty rough.
Theon was tough.
Theon is like the saddest character in TV history. I don't think anybody's ever been more tortured than that guy.
No. But this was, speaking of sad death, Lady Mormont was,
yeah.
that was, she went out a hero.
She went out like a boss.
I mean,
for
Theon
sure.
tried to go out a hero. You got to respect the effort. I don't know what he was thinking. He was
Well, that's
gonna
what I
accomplish.
mean. I mean,
But Lady
that guy just
Mormont,
straight.
when she was held by a giant, you just heard him popping her, and she still reached forward and with a dagger in the eye. That was a really cool moment. I mean, that's about as good of a death as you could ask for in the world of Game of Thrones.
Probably, yeah, or not dying, but that would be better. But
Yeah,
she did it. I mean, she was awesome. I don't know. I thought she was dead when the giant jumped in and just. I thought he broke her neck when he like swatted her away.
Johnny Beef says Jorah is the GOAT. Yeah, but I mean, you look at Theon, and I think Theon's story had a complete arc.
Oh, it totally did.
When at the moment where Bran looks at him and he knows what's going to happen, and Theon's like, "Yeah, I'm about to die," and Bran says, "You're a good man. Thank you."
You can see how much that meant to Theon.
Yeah.
You know, to hear that he was somebody considered him a good person, especially somebody that he feels like he wronged
Right.
so terribly, years ago. But at the same time, you gotta wonder if Bran's really holding. If Bran knew all this was about to go down and that Arya was about to kill the Night King, and he still let him
He could have just
run
stalled
up,
a
he
little
could have
bit.
been like, "Hold on, Theon, just get behind me, just for a second."
Oh,
Don't
he
do
just
it.
needed that to happen. I think he knew he needed Theon to go over there and distract the Night King.
Or he could have just said, "Theon, you're a good man. Get behind me real quick."
But I don't know. I think
You
things
know
might
what I
have
mean,
changed.
though. I
Things
mean,
might
if
have
Bran
changed.
knew what was about to go down, then it was kind of a
I
jerk
feel
move.
I'm conflicted on this. The Night King dying in last night's episode was epic. I mean, I jumped off the couch and cheered. I thought it was a brilliant, incredible moment. But at the same time,
It was a little anticlimactic.
I'm wondering what was the point of the Night King? We've been waiting for the White Walkers and this army of the dead and everything for so many years. And it's awesome that they lost and the good guys won and Arya was the one to do it. But what was the point?
Well, I think Game of Thrones has...
Are we going to learn about them?
Well, Game of Thrones has built up this reputation for killing everything that you love, right? And so it was hard for this episode to not feel, in my opinion, like a bit too much fan service, because even though we got some deaths, like there were no truly main character deaths. Like none of the Starks died. You know, most of the fan favorites like Tormund or Jaime, you know, Tyrion, they didn't die.
I thought
like,
Tyrion was dying. I also thought at one point Tyrion was going to kiss Sansa. Like I was like, wait, are they gonna kiss? Because
I think that might be.
Like last week I saw Arya just drop draws and go ahead and get with Gendry, and I was like, this is making me feel weird. And then I just saw what it looked like Sansa and Tyrion.
I don't think it's outside the realm of possibility to think that so in the future war, King's Landing gets destroyed, and then they turn Winterfell into the new capital, and Sansa becomes the queen, and maybe she's got Tyrion by her side.
No, Arya deserves to be the queen.
Arya's
Sansa,
not
I
gonna.
said it.
Arya's not gonna.
The big complaint, obviously, about last night, if you guys are on social media, you know this, was that the episode was too dark. Everybody seems to be saying this episode is too dark. I agree for the first 20 minutes. Until Melisandre went MVP of the night and actually lit up the episode. You couldn't really see much. And Eddard died in the first few minutes when he saved Samwell Tarly. And I could see, like, based on his acting, that something really bad happened to him. But I was like, wait, did a knife come through his face? Did an arrow go through his eye? And I'm sitting there like, what happened to this guy?
Yeah.
And then blood comes out of his mouth, and I'm like, okay, there's no arrow in his face. I don't know what just happened.
Right.
And people were getting pulled over the wall by the whites, and I'm just like, wait, hold on, who just went over the wall? It was nobody. Oh, okay, it was nobody. I didn't know that. I thought that might have been Samwell Tarly. I couldn't see.
I didn't even think the lighting was as much of a problem as much as the editing kind of led to a lot of misdirection, because there was a point where all these zombies or whites or whatever got on top of Brienne, and I was like, they're eating Brienne, she's dead.
And then she's not.
And then just like 5 minutes later, she's fighting
I think
again.
Jaime sliced two of them from what I could see, and then she's fine. So listen, I'm criticizing. Yes, I loved the episode.
It was
I
great.
mean, it was a magnificent hour and a half to sit on the couch, look up at the TV, and just consume this thing. It was a really amazing television, but it was far from perfect. And this weekend was unbelievable, though. This weekend as a whole, between Endgame and Game of Thrones, what a time to be alive.
You don't usually get resolution like this.
No.
One weekend.
But with the Night King dying, I sat there and I was like, well, what do we do now? Like, is the show over? Well, now we have to go fight Cersei, I guess. Dany's probably going to become the villain.
Not only do we have to fight Cersei, but we have to fight Cersei with an army that's, mostly dead now. There's not a lot left of that army. The Dothraki are all gone. The Unsullied, some of them are alive, but, like Grey Worm, basically.
I do want to compliment the scene with Arya where she was in, I guess that was a library, and going through and trying to avoid the whites. That was a very tense, very cool, very well shot sequence.
I also want to compliment the fact that I think that this episode specifically, maybe not the entire series, but this episode was a masterclass in misdirection, because there was, if you think about it, it hinted that Arya was going to be the one to take down the Night King so many times. It's just peppered throughout the episode, and I personally never even saw it.
I need to watch it again. I actually need to watch it again so I can hopefully see something.
Yeah.
I see a comment. Michael Carr says, get a better TV. It was fine of mine. Listen, Michael Carr, I got a pretty nice TV, all right, buddy? Take your TV and you turn the brightness down.
I watched it with a blanket over. That's what I...
Yeah, that's how I watch all my shows.
Yeah.
I just like to listen to them for the first 20 minutes. But now it's been mostly Game of Thrones and Avengers in the news cycle, and especially today on Comic Book Now, obviously. But we do have one bit of news that is trending now. Warner Brothers flew journalists across the planet to Tokyo, Japan for a Detective Pikachu event. And Godzilla King of the Monsters as well. Both are getting positive reactions, but we are going to focus on the Pokemon side of it. Comicbook.com's Megan Peters went out. She was part of the exclusive group to see that movie, and spoiler alert, she loved it. She says Pikachu is a hit. She says that Pokemon fans, both new and old, will rejoice in this heartfelt and authentic take on the franchise. She says they nailed it. And this wasn't all she said. She actually had a series of tweets that we're going to take a look at. For die-hard Pokemon fans, Detective Pikachu is a must-see. Never before has the franchise made its pocket monsters so accessible. I mean, literally, they haven't. But that's a good point. I'm just kidding. I like to mess with Megan. She's great. It balances the massive world with such love. And she compliments Justice Smith, saying he's as captivating as any Pokeball. That's well played. I see what she did there. Oh, and keep an eye out for Easter eggs. It's the most relatable Pokemon. Psyduck is great, and she was enamored. So I think she liked it. She's not the only one. Paul Shire from Joe Blow said he had a fun time with Detective Pikachu. Says it's silly, heartfelt, and chock full of Pokemon, which makes for some great world building in what sure is to spin into one hell of a franchise. Honestly, I think this could be the next franchise that rivals Avengers Endgame. If any movie is going to top that box office, it's Pokemon Endgame that I'm taking my kids I don't have yet to in 2030. Detective Pikachu is pure joy from start to finish, says Nerdist's Dan Casey. It's a heartfelt, relentlessly charming story filled with excellent world building, plenty of deep cuts for Pokemon fans. There must have been a grass type in the theater because I got misty-eyed in parts. Oh, that's like 3 Pokemon references in one at the end there.
A lot of very emotional things coming out.
I can't wait to see Detective Pikachu. I'm going to the Detective Pikachu premiere this Thursday in New York. I'm going to see the movie. We're going to do interviews.
You're going to a premiere?
Yeah.
That's weird.
My
Never
life is
happens
dope and
to
I do
you.
dope stuff. All right, but now it's time for my favorite part of the show, the live Q&A, where we just go off script. There's no script for this part. You guys are the script, Comic Book Nation. So drop your questions in the comment section. We will answer. We're already 5 minutes late. This part's supposed to start 15 minutes ago.
Yeah, we're getting some fun questions.
So let's see if we get some fun questions. We'll talk with you guys. Avengers, Endgame, Game of Thrones. It's all fair game. Let's talk.
Adria wants to know, where can the MCU go from here?
Anywhere. I
had some theories that you weren't very fond of.
I think Phase 4 will remember Iron Man 3 after the Avengers?
Yeah.
And how it was affected by how Tony Stark, the main character of Iron Man 3, was so affected by the Avengers. I think we'll see even more fallout onto other characters and the supporting characters.
Yeah.
Like the timelines, the Eternals is a perfect example. The Eternals are going to be a history lesson in the MCU. But if we're going to go back in history and bring in characters like Cersei and different Eternals, they can be the ones to explore what happened when timelines change. That's a perfect place to do it. And I also think the TV shows, the Disney Plus streaming shows, are going to be a big part of Phase 4.
Sure.
And which is, I don't know about that. I don't know how I feel about that.
I'm pretty excited about it.
I like it, but if the Netflix shows were required viewing to get all of the payoff in Endgame, and if Cloak and Dagger and the Runaways and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., if there were even more hidden details for those, that I think would have been too much.
Yeah.
So it's gonna. Let's see how they handle it. But I think Endgame Fallout is a huge part of Phase 4, and then obviously that's a passing of the torch to Black Panther, Captain Marvel, Spider-Man, and the new characters, Shang-Chi, which is filming in Australia soon.
No, I think that's fair. I would love to see some stuff like that. What was one of the things I wanted to see? A movie about Pepper Potts and Bruce Banner getting together, finding solace in the death of Iron Man and Black Widow coming together. Bruce struggles to be a stepdad, that sort of thing.
If anybody's looking for a job, we just posted a listing for co-host on Comic Book Now.
Let's see, we got some more questions.
But also the Fantastic Four and the X-Men we can start seeing pop up too. That's further down the line, I think. I think that's.
I don't think the Fantastic Four is as far down the line as we.
No, it's definitely coming far before the X-Men, I think.
I think we're going to have some surprise announcements because we definitely have the movies that we think are coming, and
I hope they're surprises.
I think that we're going to have some surprise announcements really soon. When are you thinking we might get those? I'm thinking post Far From Home.
Man, Comic-Con would be the perfect place if it's post Far From Home.
Yeah.
Comic-Con is 2 weeks after Spider-Man Far From Home releases. So Comic-Con D23, I think, by the end of this summer, we will have a very clear picture of the next 3 to 4 years of Marvel films, I think. Yeah.
Let's see. We got some more questions here. Zach wants to know, what's y'all's opinion of Professor Hulk?
Doom. Everybody wants to see Doom. I loved Professor Hulk. I
Yeah.
thought he was great. I thought he was one of the highlights of the film.
I thought it was a lot of fun.
I liked him far more than I liked Fat Thor. Not because he's fat. It's fine to be fat, guys. Live your life. But because the jokes there was too many. I'm in the camp of Thor Ragnarok. Limited its stakes by replacing them with comedy. And I thought in Avengers Endgame the stakes were very present throughout. And to have this running joke of Fat Thor, like right down to wearing the homeless person.
Meanwhile,
in the Avengers HQ, they couldn't get him some decent clothes.
I love Thor Ragnarok, so it just goes to show that MCU's got a little something for everybody.
So you loved the Fat Thor jokes.
I love the Fat Thor jokes. I thought they were great.
Well,
Here we are.
I'm done with Marvel. I'm just kidding.
Brandon wants to know, hey, Chris and BD, how do you guys think the events of Endgame will come into play in Spider-Man Far From Home? Well, for one, I think it's going to be kind of weird because it's going to be like, what, 2023?
And he'll be 20-something years old and
But still in
a
high
junior.
school.
So yeah, somebody actually asked this question earlier. How is Peter Parker? 5 years went by and he's still in high school. I don't think any of the people who disappeared aged.
Yeah.
So I guess this would mean that everybody in Peter Parker's high school class also got snapped. And they went to high school, but so then they went and they're back, and I bet you we'll see a lot of new characters too.
Hopefully, I was going to say,
younger before.
I hope that they bring that up where maybe like Flash or somebody. No, we see Flash in the trailer, but somebody from the original
Maybe he's
class.
a teacher now.
Right? Maybe he's actually big.
Yeah.
I don't know. No. But I hope that we see that like some of the
Jose
students
said no
grew.
spoilers, please. Jose, buddy,
Oh.
listen. Sorry to tell you, this is awkward.
Yeah, this is you've come in at a good time for us.
Johnny
to
Mead
tell
said,
you.
leave now, Jose. Yeah, that's tough. That's tough. Look, $1.2 billion worth of people watched Avengers, and probably 1.2 billion people watched Game of Thrones, so I think it was all fair game. Chris, you think we should wrap up the show today?
I think we're probably pretty good.
That was fun. If you guys have more questions, tweet them using hashtag #comicbooknow. Send them to us on Twitter, on the Instagram, at Chris Killian, at Brandon Davis BD. We love to talk to you guys. And we love the +1 in the follower account, if we're being transparent, right?
It's honest.
This is Comic Book Now, guys. Next week, we have Joe Russo. Stay tuned for a special little tease of that. We'll see you later. Hey, Comic Book Nation, BD here, and I am so excited to announce that on May 6th at 6 p.m. Pacific Time, we'll be broadcasting a live hour-long interview with Avengers Endgame co-director Joe Russo from his Duello restaurant in Los Angeles. That's right, we're going to get all the inside information, everything you want to know about Avengers Endgame, all of your unanswered questions. Start sending them to us on social media and use the hashtag #EveningWithJoe. We'll be monitoring it, we'll be using live questions, and we will be live on May 6th at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Head over to Comicbook.com/Marvel for more details.